All right, my next guest is the communications director at Power the Future. Larry Behrens, welcome back to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. I cleaned up just for you.
Thank you. $369 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act for this green slush fund. We're paying for losing, aren't we?
We absolutely are. And just put that in context, in 2019, the yearly budget for the United States Navy, that's all the ships, all the meals, everything that it takes to run the Navy, was $220 billion. So Joe Biden is going to spend more than that on bailing out his green buddies. And this is the same guy who was the architect of Solyndra. And so the scheme's going to work like this. We're seeing it everywhere, right? We're seeing automakers tap the brakes on their EVs. We're seeing wind projects getting canceled left and right. And when they don't work out, even after all the favorable press, even after all the massive tax subsidies they have, they're going to be beaten down a path to the door to the political operative at the White House who's in charge of this money, not the climate scientist, not the monetary expert, but the political operative, so that Joe Biden's friends can keep getting rich.
I'm a free market guy, but it's one thing we've learned that it kind of blunts your competitive edge when you just get the free money from the government. And if you make a product that nobody wants, you expect more free money from the government. So why are you going to improve your product? What was this bus company that just went out of business? Billions in, gone.
Yeah, and let's be honest about what happened with that too, right? So the energy secretary, Joe Biden's energy secretary, owned stock in it. She pulls the president in for a nice little photo op and says, we should all be with this company. The stock price goes up. Magically, she sells her stock. And then what happens? The company goes belly up. And that is exactly right. The free market should be determining these winners and losers. But no, it's the government picking, and all they seem to be able to pick is losers.
Like, look, for example, you see these plug-in vans that Amazon has. If it makes sense, now it probably makes sense to them because there's a tax credit. That's how GE didn't pay any taxes during the Obama-Biden years, right? They just greened their fleets and got involved in green energy, and $14 billion, zero in taxes. But if it makes sense for your business, think about this. Golf carts are plug-ins, right? And what's the most they go around in a day? And if they get caught, they run out of power halfway through the course, you wheel the thing back and plug it in. It's not like getting stuck in traffic. I mean, if it makes sense for you to have a plug-in vehicle, great. But what Biden is doing is subsidizing losers and trying to force us to drive these things.
You're absolutely right. And let's be honest, this is a movie sequel that we've seen before, and it didn't make money before, but Joe Biden's going to keep pushing it. He had $90 billion, to your point, during the Obama administration to usher in the green future that we were supposed to have. Well, it didn't happen, right? And Obama was all excited about like the Chevy Volt and all these EVs that were just around the corner. Well, here we are well over a decade later, and they've decided, you know what we did wrong? We just didn't spend enough tax dollars at a time when it is painful to go to the grocery store. They're wanting to spend more tax dollars to keep these failures of the companies afloat. Why? Because one, it's his radical agenda, and two, I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but these are some of his biggest campaign donors. And that's before we even get to the money that's heading to China.
I'm seeing social media postings of people who are posting receipts, or at least they're probably estimates, to replace the batteries. It can be almost half the price of the car. What's the trade-in value of an EV with a battery nearing the end of its life?
It's not very high. And let's just be honest. The studies have shown if your emissions is your big concern, you're an environmentalist, then you're just putting all the emissions in China is all you're doing when you're buying these EVs. And by the time you've driven that EV enough so that it starts to actually get emissions positive, you have to replace those batteries, and it restarts the clock all over again. It is sometimes tens of thousands of dollars to do that. And so, yeah, they get dumped on the market. And, I think President Trump said it exactly right. The happiest time to own an EV is the first day when you see it in your driveway, because after that, it's just not going to work out for you. It is an absolute failure. And to your point, if it works for some people, great. But it's another solution from Joe Biden that they think is so wonderful, they have to force us to buy it.
Yeah, and the grid is not, even by their best efforts, what powers the power plant it's still fossil fuels, unless we're supposed to believe that a nation of 300 million people with densely populated cities, New York City's got 9-10 million people. You can't run this place on wind and solar. I would love to believe it, but you can't. The science isn't there. And what are they going to do? Pour 5 trillion, 10 trillion in till we get there? When they talk about the transition, they never tell us how long it's going to take. They just basically say we need a blank check and unlimited time.
It is. It's an absolute bait and switch. And your point is exactly the right one. Let's go 5-10 years down the road. Imagine the truck stop today that runs on liquid-based fuels. In the future, that is going to take as much energy as a small city to be able to just to power the vehicles that are coming through it. And that's just the automobiles. That doesn't count the trucks. We're going to need a massive increase. So not only at the time when they say we should electrify everything, we're going to need more energy. They are going to sources that are unreliable and much more expensive. And yeah, if it's a cloudy day, well, I guess you're just not driving.
You know, the other side of this is Biden put a moratorium on our own rare earth. So he wants us to drive the cars. He just doesn't want us to make the batteries.
He doesn't. And you have to look at places like Minnesota, places like Alaska, where workers are ready to go to extract these minerals for these products Joe Biden says that we need. But no, he's only happy getting it from China. He's only happy in getting it from Africa. It's kind of like our oil. He's not happy with any oil that's extracted here in the United States, but if Iran does it, he loves it. Venezuela does it, he's more than happy. Saudi Arabia, he's more than happy to get the oil. Yeah, I mean, Joe Biden's a big fan of fracking as long as it's done in Ukraine.
Yeah, but again, it's still going to take fossil fuels to power the power plants, to power the energy, to plug in the cars, which is, all right, I got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
Andrew, it was good to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
All right.